the Divorced Girls Smiling Podcast with your host, Jackie Pilosoff.
No one should have to go through a divorce feeling alone and isolated. The Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast is a production of Divorced Girl Smiling, where every show is 30 minutes aimed to empower you, help you feel validated and understood, and connect you with some of the best divorce professionals in the industry. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and start smiling as you join us right now for the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found and always at divorcedgirlsmiling.com. Before we get started, I want to tell you about an online event that I'm hosting that I think you're going to want to know about. It's called Divorce-A-Palooza, and it starts January 6th. And basically, if you sign up, you can get 2 10-minute interviews delivered into your inbox each day. Who are these interviews with? It's me interviewing all of my Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professionals. I'm telling you, these experts will give you so much information and will arm you to be ready during your divorce. Topics include questions to ask a divorce attorney in a consult, how to stay strong and confident, how to date again, facing your fear of being alone, and how to handle your kids when they get upset with the divorce. So if you want to sign up, it's free. Go to divorcedgirlsmiling.com and look in the menu bar under Divorce-A-Palooza. That's all you have to do. Hope to see ya. I also want to tell you about a great nanny service. So if you are thinking about getting divorced, going back to work, already at work, and need a nanny, a babysitter, a caregiver, a mother's helper, I would highly recommend Premier Nanny Network. Bryn Ungerleider is the founder, and Bryn has been babysitting since she was a preteen. She loves children. She has so much dedication to make sure that kids have good, caring role models, and that's what led her to starting Premier Nanny Network. She has been doing this for quite a while. I'm so excited to be working with Bryn because I really trust her, and she can help you if you're looking for a nanny through your divorce or after. And she can also find nannies who will share households, like share a nanny with your ex. If you want to learn more, you can find Bryn at premiernannynetwork.com. Difficult, disrespectful, and toxic. How the heck do you co-parent with a person like this? That's what I want to talk about today. My guest is Sherry Morris. Sherry is a lawyer turned divorce coach. She's a parenting coordinator. She's a Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professional. And Sherry has a new course out called the Co-Parenting Compass course. Hi, Sherry.
Jackie, it's so great, and especially to be here with you in person.
This is so much fun. So if you're listening, you can't see. If you're watching this on YouTube, Sherry and I are sitting in a hotel in downtown Chicago. We've known each other for a couple years, but we just met for the first time this morning, and it has been so much fun.
I so appreciate you making the journey into the city, Jackie. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. I'm so glad I did. So I'm going to take my glasses off so I look a little better. Okay. So Sherry and I are going to talk about an article that you wrote for Divorced Girl Smiling called Difficult, Disrespectful, and Toxic: How to Co-Parent with This Person. And before we get into this, tell me about your new course, the Co-Parenting Compass.
So the Co-Parenting Compass course is really for anyone, even people who are parenting in marriage. Interestingly enough, it's really about what it means to be a co-parent. And anyone who has a child with another person and is raising them together or separately is a co-parent. So this course talks about some fundamentals, whether you're together or separate, and best practices, how that should look. You probably aren't an expert on this because we're all, as parents, learning as we go, but this gives us all tools to do it better. And I'd say this is for someone contemplating divorce, going through divorce, or someone with post-divorce difficulties who wants to figure out how to do better in the co-parenting. So if that's you, take a look at the course.
All right. Now, how long does it take to do the course?
So it depends. And the nice part, this is your journey. So you can listen to it only, you can watch it and listen to it, and you can do it over time. So the whole course would take a few hours total, but you can break it up over days, hours, weeks, whatever you decide. And you can do it, or you and your co-parent can do it. There's an advantage to both, honestly.
Wow. So you're doing it on your own timetable. But also, what I love about this is like, what I hear from divorced women is, I'm so worried about the kids. I'm so worried about the kids. Well, guess what? If you do this program, you're doing everything you can. So then you won't be so worried because you're like, you know what? I'm doing something. I'm taking action to make sure that I'm going to be the best possible co-parent.
And honestly, Jackie, that's all we can ask for. I'm not asking anyone. I am not a perfect parent. I know my children will be very surprised to hear that, but no one is, and we don't have to be. But what we're looking for are best practices. And this gives you tips and tools. It's like any other skill set, right? We need to learn them and practice them. And that's what this course helps you do.
And can you get this and do it even if you have a really difficult person who's like a horrible co-parent who wants nothing to do with this, who is disrespectful, difficult, and toxic?
Well, let me tell you, I speak from personal and professional experience in saying yes. In fact, it may be more important. It's harder when you have that difficult co-parent to self-regulate. It's harder to stay in that space of neutral, and this course gives you tips and tools to do that. So I really embrace those people who have conflict. Certainly, we all aspire to the unconscious coupling model, but not all of us have it. And if you don't have it, you need to be able to have someone work with you who understands that perspective, and I get it. And I will be there beside you. And in addition to the course, if you need more, I'm here for you. So tell me what's working, what you still are struggling with, and we'll have a discovery Zoom to talk about that.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So Sherry's website is deardivorcecoach.com, and the co-parenting course is coparentingacademy.com.
That's right. And you can also find it right at deardivorcecoach.com.
Okay. All right. Let's get into this discussion. So first of all, why do you think that there's so much difficulty, such disrespect, and such toxicity when it comes to co-parenting?
So it's an interesting question. I want to take a step back from divorce because we can see this kind of thing happening even in difficult marriages, right? People have different parenting styles. So sometimes you can be co-parenting with someone you're in a relationship with, and it's still not good, right? So the reason I think we see so much of this in divorce is because people don't separate the kids from the relationship. So when they have issues with you as a co-parent because of the relationship, they project all the troubles with the kids onto you too. And they don't have the skill set to do that. So if they haven't taken care of their own issues in the relationship, then a lot of times it gets superimposed on the children, which is, as you know, terrible for them.
Okay, so let's even take a step even further back. What exactly is co-parenting? Like, what are we talking about here?
Great question, Jackie. Co-parenting is how you take care of your kids when you're doing it in partnership with another person. It's figuring out the intersection of your home and your rules and their home and their rules. And sometimes we're talking about two separate homes, right? Most of the time, certainly in separation and divorce. So how are you going to take care of your kids when they have two separate sets of rules, two separate homes? How do those overlap and intersect? Are you going to have any intersection? Sometimes people don't, right? That's called parallel parenting, where they don't. But if you're truly trying to co-parent, you're trying to meet the needs of that child in a way that really serves them, even if it means, Jackie, and this is what some people have a hard time with, the interaction with your co-parent. Some people just—
Right, because they say, I don't want to ever look at him again. I'm never speaking to him again. Well, guess what? That cannot be. I'm not saying you have to have these hour-long conversations 3 times a week, but you're going to have communication, whether that's through Our Family Wizard, whether that's through email or texting or whatever, or even phone conversations. If something happens to your child, if God forbid there's a medical issue and the two of you have to talk about how to move forward, which surgeon to go with, anything, you might have to talk to the person. So if you're listening, we understand you right now can't stand your ex. You don't even ever want to see him again. But the sad part and the beautiful part for your kids is that you have to be there for your children and you're going to have to communicate. And the better you know how to do that, the better off your kids are going to be.
If I may just take a moment, because I do think we all have this sort of disconnect between what it means to be cooperative in separation and divorce and in co-parenting and enmeshed, right? So we think you either are super cooperative or you never speak at all. And the reality is most people fall somewhere in between and they don't know how to do it, right? So we like to create a narrative with our co-parents sometimes. They're so difficult, I can't deal with them. What's our role in it? And that's the challenge I put to the listeners today. What's my role? What am I hooked on that I can't get past that doesn't serve my children? I'm not blaming you. I'm not shaming you. I have my own challenges, but we're going to work together on what that looks like so you get out of your own way for these kids. Remember, your job is not to help your co-parent get out of their own way, but you do have the responsibility to get out of your own way.
Okay, now I want to tell my listeners and viewers, what I'm about to say is not selling Sherry and her divorce coaching services. But what I want to say is, can you imagine just listening to this conversation for 10 minutes, how much better at co-parenting you could be if you went to a coach and had a few sessions with Sherry? I mean, Sherry, I could have used you when I was going through my divorce. Now, I went through a divorce in 2008. There were no parenting coaches. There was no divorce coaching. This is the kind of money to spend that the benefits will be so much, you'll feel like she should have charged more.
Really?
So again, I'm not sitting here trying to convince you, oh, we're trying to sell Sherry's services. I'm saying I'm doing you a huge favor by telling you about them because honestly, you're amazing, Sherry, and what you can offer people to help them and their kids have such a smoother transition in post-divorce life is really amazing.
Well, thank you, Jackie. And I think one of the things I want to impress in this moment in time with you is that we are in this together. So I remember going through my divorce, there were people who would tell you how you were doing it wrong. And that doesn't feel good. You need to be heard and validated for what you're doing right, and then just given a skill set. So in other words, it's not either or. It's I can hear you, I can understand, and then I'm going to help you get to the other side because the other side of conflict is your peace and joy. Again, you're not changing your co-parent. You probably never will. There's probably a reason you're divorced, even if you were the reluctant spouse in that divorce. So you can find happiness for yourself and your children, but it's going to take a little work, and that's okay. We all have to do this work.
And if you need to forgive yourself if you make mistakes and you're a bad co-parent. Please, I can't even count of the number of times I badmouthed my ex. I was mean to him in front of the kid. I mean, but we have to forgive ourselves, and we can only just try to strive to do better next time.
I think so. And one of the things that comes up a lot with my clients is, what do I say when my child comes to me with something my co-parent said that's just wrong or really toxic, right? We're talking about the disrespectful and toxic co-parenting. And I just want to give one tip and tool we can all walk away with today, which is you don't have to say anything in the moment. You can say, that's so interesting. That must have been hard for you to hear.
Okay, wait, I'm stopping you right there because we have to take a break. And when we come back, you're going to give us more tips on how to answer that mom said or dad said that you always tell him he doesn't give you enough money. Or dad said that the reason you got divorced is because you cheated. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to give you tips for better co-parenting and how to be happier and healthier after divorce. We'll be right back. One of the most stressful aspects of getting divorced is feeling like your spouse might be hiding money. To hire a forensic accountant or to have your divorce attorney do that can cost tens of thousands of dollars, and a lot of people either can't afford that or they don't think it's worth it because it's so costly. Well, guess what? The Divorce Money Guide has you covered. Developed by well-known forensic accountant Tracy Conan, the Divorce Money Guide is a tool to help you find out if your ex is hiding money. It's a 10-step handbook that walks you through what to do to find the money. And you walk away either with a complete sense of relief because you now know the person isn't hiding money, Or you walk away with proof to give your attorney, who can now take action to make sure your divorce is fair and equitable. I'm telling you, this is a no-brainer. I would highly, highly recommend getting it. If you want to get the Divorce Money Guide, go to divorcemoneyguide.com/divorce. I also want to tell you about ALR Connections. ALR Connections is a wonderful firm that helps women who want to go back to work after divorce. Whether you need to go back to work for financial reasons or you want to go back to work but you feel deficient in technology, I get how you're feeling. That was me. I was a stay-at-home mom for almost 15 years, and then I went back to work. And believe me, I was scared. Scared of technology, scared of social media. I didn't even know what I was doing. Well, guess what? ALR Connections can not only help you find a job, but they will help you create a LinkedIn profile, update your resume, get tips on interviewing, and other things with technology. Would highly, highly recommend this company. So if you want to learn more, go to alrconnections.com. You're listening to the Divorce Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. Today, we are talking about co-parenting with a difficult, disrespectful, and possibly toxic ex. My guest is Sherry Morris, attorney turned divorce coach, parenting coordinator, the founder of her business, which is Dear Divorce Coach, deardivorcecoach.com. Sherry, tell me what to say if your kids say, Dad said this, Dad said that.
I think, and also let's just say, or mom, right? Because we've got moms that do it too.
Of course.
And so I would say what you do first is take a breath, take a pause. So let's all slow it down, because in those moments, it's triggering us, right? We're really escalated. So stop whatever you're doing and remember that in any situation, you don't, unless there's an emergency, someone's on fire, you don't have to have an immediate response, right? So you can just pause and say, I heard what you're saying. I hear you. I'm going to get back to you about that, because you probably have nothing that you can say that's positive for your child or about your co-parent in that moment. You also can say nothing to your co-parent. So many of my clients then race to their phone to text their co-parent, you said X, Y, and Z, you son of a, and it doesn't do any good. In fact, it may give them validation. Look, there he goes again. They're crazy, right? So we're just going to slow it down. We're going to take a pause, and we're going to say to our kid, I'll get back to you. And if your kid says, I don't want you to get back to me because they're a teenager and they're like, I knew it was true. And you'll say, that's such an interesting perspective. I can see you have a lot of feelings around that. We will talk about this.
I just need to think for a few minutes because I'm processing it.
That's it. And it also, what you're doing, Jackie, as you well know, is role modeling to your kids how they can behave in difficult situations.
Well, don't you feel like, Sherry, in this day and age, people get a text or someone says something or they get an email and these kids think you have to respond in like 3 seconds. Like, people can wait for a response. And sometimes it's what you say will come out so much better and more effectively if you wait until you cool down and think it through.
I mean, look, we are in a time in our nation, in our world, where I think we all need better skills in conflict, and how we get there matters. So whether we're co-parenting or talking about a hot button issue, we can all take a breath and take a pause. So again, this is something we can all use right now today in a number of situations.
Love it. Okay, let's move on to best practices for communicating with your former partner.
So I'm a strong believer, and I know that text is ubiquitous. Everybody's doing it all the time. But it's that rapid fire method of communication that often allows us to get more escalated than we should. So I prefer co-parenting communication is done through email. And oftentimes, I like my clients to create a separate email if there's any level of conflict, so you're not waiting for your inbox to pop up with that message from your
Or our Family Wizard.
Absolutely.
So you can go to ourfamilywizard.com and you can have that be your portal for communication just with your ex. What's nice about it is that everything is on record. And then if you set up your own email, that's fine. But then you might lose emails. You want to find them later. You don't know where they are. With our Family Wizard, it's all there.
It's a wonderful tool, and it doesn't have to be for just high conflict families. So I think knowing that you have an option and they're using it exclusively can feel really empowering. It doesn't mean that you're people who can't get along and have to use the special tool.
Right.
Sort of the stigma around that. If you can't fully cooperate, you're the problem. And the answer is we're all the problem. We need a tool that works for our kids. How do we serve them?
All right. So tell me about why email and doing everything in writing is better. And you're probably going to say, especially at the beginning of the divorce.
I think so because, look, first of all, you then have a record of what happens. God forbid you need to go to court. We don't want to get there, but you've got it documented. It's also a way to remind your co-parent in a neutral way of what they claimed would happen or what they were going to do. And again, you never want to have to use that tool, but if you've gotten it in writing, it's not a he said, she said, or a she said kind of thing. So we've got documentation. We're going to use it. And it's a great tool to de-escalate and to document.
Okay. What about boundaries? Let's talk about that. The texting at 10 o'clock when your spouse maybe has been drinking, or you texting your spouse right when something happens and firing off 80 texts.
It makes for a really good reality show and really bad life, right? So I think we create boundaries by, for example, saying, I will only respond to your email once a day in writing or once a week, whatever the limits can be, unless there's an urgent issue. You generally, unless you have to have an extremely high conflict, don't want to have to block your co-parent in texting. But if you're getting texts at 3 a.m. that you can't put on Do Not Disturb, then you might have to make a different decision. So to the extent you communicate your limits without, stay in the neutral zone. I will be looking at my email once a day at this time, so I really ask you to send, the email then, or, set up your boundaries so that, and don't respond to those 3 a.m. texts that are nonsense.
Right. I was just going to say, don't back down. Don't make an exception, because it's almost like training a toddler.
It's so true. And again, you can only self-regulate. You will never change them. You can't persuade them. If you had trouble doing that as an intimate partner, imagine now you're divorced. You're going to have even less influence.
Well, I want to bring up another thing that is a boundary that you might not think of if you're listening to this. So let's say your ex is talking really disrespectfully to you and is calling you things and cussing at you. That's a boundary that you have every right to say, next time you call me an effing bitch, that's the end of our conversation. I will hang up the phone. Now, you had your warning and then you're like, I know, but shut up, whatever. That's it. Even shut up. And honestly, you will feel so much better about yourself. You'll be setting a better example for your kids. And again, like training a toddler, these boundaries are really important, especially in co-parenting, because you shouldn't be expected to co-parent with somebody who talks to you that way.
No, you shouldn't. And you can only teach people how to treat you and what you will tolerate. And that means, again, you may never stop them from doing that thing on the phone, so you can stop yourself from talking to them on the phone. And so if they, for example, then send you an email with all those abusive names, again, respond only in a neutral way. Because there is still the issue of co-parenting. If it's extreme enough, then again, you might have to get legal help, because obviously we have boundaries that shouldn't be crossed. But in general, courts don't care much about that kind of thing. They think people just fight in divorce. And going to court doesn't really help. So
it makes it worse.
It makes it worse. So if you can just respond to, well, thank you for telling me that, I'm a actually, you wouldn't say that, Jackie.
My editor's going to edit that out anyway. Like, you would just put a bleep in that.
Since I've had that happen to me, I can speak to it. But I think the main thing is to say, you don't address the toxicity. You just say, I will have the child ready at 3 p.m. And that's it, right? So you're addressing only the neutral stuff in the email because you do have, for your child, remember, it's not all about how you feel about your co-parent. It is creating those boundaries if you can, but you still have to take care of the kid.
Okay, so this is a great way to close this podcast. You can only co-parent the way that you are co-parenting. You have no control over the way your ex-parents really or co-parents with you. So what advice do you have for people who have like this horrible ex that will not respect your boundaries, that will not really make plans, won't speak to you? It's just awful.
I think the best advice I have and the practical tip and tool is unhook from your expectation of them and take care of yourself and your child. That means don't expect to do this version of unconscious coupling. There are people who are extremely toxic and disrespectful, haven't done their work. And so what you're going to do is not live your life in relation to them. And that means staying neutral in the communication zone, setting these clear boundaries with them, listening to your children, answering their questions when you're prepared to do so, but taking your time. I tell you, Jackie, you will find your joy and peace on the other side, but you got to stay neutral and taking care of yourself in this space.
And that's not easy to do.
No, in fact, it's extraordinarily hard. It's why coaching works.
Right.
There are many people in this field who do a good job helping hold those boundaries with and for you and will validate what you're experiencing. Those people exist now. Reach out to me or to someone else who does this work because we will help you stay there and get to the other side of this.
All right. I know I just said we were closing, but I do want to bring one more thing up. People say, well, I have a therapist. It's different. And I'm not saying don't go to therapy. Therapy is wonderful for what Sherry just said. But when you really want to ask questions about co-parenting and what should I do? He did this. How should I handle it? That is what a divorce coach can help you with that a therapist just can't.
I think it's true. And there's some therapists who do co-parenting work and they're extremely good, but some therapists are really just going to say, this is extreme, this is really hard, let's work on
Most
for you.
therapists will say that.
And so my experience is if you want practical tools and tips, get into coaching. We are there to do this work very specifically with you.
Absolutely. Sherry, thanks for being on the show, and I'm so excited that we did this together in person.
Jackie, what a pleasure. Thank you.
And to my listeners, if you liked what you heard and you want to talk to Sherry, the best way to find her is deardivorcecoach.com, or you can go to her co-parenting course if you want to sign up for that at coparentingacademy.com. And if you want to listen to more podcasts or find a bunch, like 60 now, trusted, vetted divorce professionals, everything from divorce lawyers, mortgage lenders, real estate agents, financial advisors, and more, go to divorcedgirlsmiling.com. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you real soon.